Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. In case you're new here, my name is Maren.
And I'm Maureen.
Yeah, so in today's episode, we are going to be looking at a person of interest, and I'd encourage you to go look her up if you don't know who she is. We are going to be looking at Meg Whiteman. Who is she? She's the American ambassador to Kenya.
Right, and when this whole mess started in Kenya, the protest and all, Kenyans were calling for Meg Whiteman to be deported back to her country. And this, they said, it was because of her that Kenyans, and rather, the president of Kenya got involved with the IMF through the connections of Meg Whiteman. So right now, Kenyans don't want Meg Whiteman in Kenya, and they don't want IMF in Kenya either.
They also don't want Ruto. So as they're trying to get Ruto out of the seat that he's in, they don't want him as a president. They also want Meg Whiteman to be kicked out. But we don't want to talk a lot. Let's just watch this video and then we come back and talk about it. If you have any contribution or comments, please leave it on the comment section and consider subscribing if you have not. Let's watch and then we come back and talk about it.
This is for entertainment purposes only, family. Kenyans are now calling for the immediate recall and resignation and return to the divided states of Meg Whitman. Fingers are being pointed at her as the reason why Kenya is in this financial mess to begin with. Because she's even the one who actually made Biden take such a risky risk, that doesn't even make sense, on Nabi family. She's the reason that the IMF and the World Bank even came back to Kenya. And there's a show that I released, Jana, from this guy, this analyst, who was saying that whenever the IMF comes into a country, they're not giving you a loan so you can pay back so with a clean heart. They're giving you a loan, they never want that money back because they're the front for these multinational corporations. And we already know the world is being run by a multinational corporation. So he was saying we should check the Coca-Colas and the HPs of this world. Well, guess what? Maggie Dearest used to actually be like, I think the head of Hewlett Packard, and she's a dollar billionaire. So you think her being in Kenya was really about us? Or was it to further the agenda of the Mzungus in Kenya? So guys are just saying, without her, we'd not be in these problems. We'd not be in this crazy debt burden. And don't forget, last year, Mandamano, she was heavily interfering. And there's even a clip that I'll share at the end of this, where Baba, and I know he's not very popular right now, where Baba was saying, yo, stay out of Kenya. Kenya is not a US colony. Kenya is not part of the United States. We're not a US company. So keep your fingers, dirty hands off. And now Kenyans are like, yo, she needs to go. I think she was already airlifted out. I don't know if she ever came back. And the funny thing is, after all this, ever since the cabinet was fired, now all of a sudden, the divided states is issuing advisories to, I don't know if it was to their citizens or to the general or to the world or whatever, about Gen Z demonstrations in Kenya. Maggie's the problem. She needs to go. And you know what, family? I knew the rubber was hitting the road when she stood in the middle of the red carpet and Nabi held her umbrella. I'll add that to the end of this video as well. I think she got carried away, yo. I think she got carried away. She was like, oh my God, I think neo-colonialism just got to her head. But yo, it's time for her to get recalled.
Finally, you want to tell a rogue ambassador, leave Kenyans alone. If Mandamano can lead to a dialogue between Ichungwa and Kalonzo, everything is good with Mandamano. Tell the rogue ambassador, Kenya is not United States. Kenya is not a colony of the United States. Keep your mouth shut when you're here. Otherwise, you will call for your recall back to your country. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, the situation in Kenya with the protests. Well, first of all, we'll say that the president of Kenya has long been regarded as a Western client, if not a puppet. And that's not without reason. He has regularly ingratiated himself with the West, he has been pursuing neoliberal economic policies within Kenya that have made the lives of the people increasingly miserable. And so this has resulted, predictably, in protests that began peacefully and turned violent because of the police. The police shot at peaceful protesters. Now, they're calling for the removal of the president of Kenya, William Ruto. Now, what I would say about that situation is that it's similar to the situation before it in Sudan, and it's similar to the situation before Sudan in Egypt, where the people are protesting against the government for policies that the government is implementing, which the government is held hostage to implement in favor of multinational corporations and international lenders, chief among them the International Monetary Fund. In fact, the bill that stirred the protests in Kenya initially is basically an IMF bill, a structural adjustment reform, an austerity measure that is being demanded by the IMF of the Ruto government. So my opinion, as was my opinion with regards to Sudan, when Omar Bashir was being blamed for the economic policies that were the austerity measures, the austerity economic policies, the neoliberal policies that he was implementing under coercion in Sudan, and the protests against Sisi because of the neoliberal policies that he was implementing under coercion. My position has always been that these leaders, these politicians, exist to take the blame for the policies that they're implementing on behalf of private sector power. That's why they exist. That's why I call them effigies, because they exist to implement the policies that will make them unpopular, and then they'll take the brunt of the unpopularity. They'll take the brunt of public anger, and then they'll be removed, but the policies will remain, because the source of the policies is the private sector, is the international private sector. It's the OCGFC. It's the Western multinational corporations and lenders, financial institutions, and so forth. Again, specifically, the International Monetary Fund. This is your problem. And now, who is the International Monetary Fund doing what it's doing? Who is it doing it for? It's not doing it for Kenya. We all know that. And it wasn't doing it for Sudan, and it's not doing it for Egypt. So who are they doing it for? And when you identify who they're doing it for, then those are the private sector players, those are the power brokers that it makes more sense to me that the population should be protesting and should be directing their activism and their opposition towards those actors on the political and economic scene in Kenya, not the government. Now, I'm not speaking up in favor of William Ruto. There's a lot of problems with his government, certainly, without question, just as there were problems with the government of Omar Bashir, and there's certainly a multitude of problems with the government of Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. But when you're talking about specifically the way that they're managing the economy, you have to understand that they are not the managers of the economy. Their lenders are the managers of the economy, and the lenders are managing the economy in such a way as to benefit Western multinational corporations. So, for example, in Kenya, you should look at Coca-Cola. You should look at General Electric. You should look at Standard Chartered. You should look at Barclays Bank. Look at Safaricom, Nestle, IBM, and look at Toyota. These are the beneficiaries of the economic policies. These are the beneficiaries of neoliberalism. They're the ones who are holding the government hostage. And they're doing it by means of the IMF. So your president, and again, whether it's Kenya or whether it's Sudan or whether it's Egypt or whether it's Pakistan and many other places around the world, and increasingly you can say the same thing about countries in Europe, these governments, these politicians are hostages, and the policies that they're implementing are essentially like when you see a hostage being forced to read a list of demands. You don't get angry at the hostage for the demands that he's making on behalf of the hostage taker. And that's what the government does. That's what your president does. That's what your prime minister is doing. You know, they're just reading the list of demands that they have been told that they that must be met in order for them to not be eliminated. And the one that's going to be eliminated here isn't the president, it's your whole economy. Because the IMF has considerable power to sabotage and cripple your economy if you don't do what they say. That's why it's better for you if you never get involved with them in the first place. And this is why I've said time and time again that it's much better for Muslim countries, for countries in the global south, for countries in Africa, to do business with China, to do business with Russia, while they still can, while those countries are still interested in investing in Africa, in the global south, Latin America, and the Muslim world, and so on, while they still have the money to spend, you ought to take the money from them rather than taking the money from the IMF. Because the IMF and Western lenders generally are not actually interested in you paying them back. They don't want you to pay them back. Because when they loan you money, they're calling it a loan, and you think it's a loan, but what they're actually doing is buying you. So they don't want the money back. They want what they bought, which is your whole country.
So guys, welcome back. Let us know what you think about this episode. And I do agree with the second gentleman who was speaking. And I feel like Kenya's problem does not only start with bad governance, but I feel like, as he says, Kenya has a bigger problem to tackle, majority of it being the corporations that has its hands in Kenya. The IMF, it's not like, okay, let me just say it, when these people give us loans, it's not like they love Africans so much, or African countries, that they don't want to leave anyone behind when it comes to development or when it comes to whatever. So when they loan this, when they give these loans, what exactly is the intentions behind giving loans out? And they are, it's normally said that they implant puppets in these seeds, which we already know that about them. So exactly when they give this money, do you think it's to develop the country, or because they already know these people are not straight enough to put development towards the money they have given them?
Right, and as the gentleman says, IMF should have never been here in Kenya to begin with, and Kenyans, especially the presidents, should have looked for other alternatives when it came to funding. There was our third president, President Mwai Kibaki. That man tried to get us away from the Western influence by looking east. And what do I mean? He started borrowing loans from China, and then when it came to investment opportunities, he started allowing Chinese investors into our country. He even allowed education in Kenya to be free, and during his period of reign, let's just say Kenyans lived life was more quality to compared to how we live right now.
Right. There's another corporation the guy mentioned. Let's talk about those. Coca-Cola, putting IMF aside, Coca-Cola, the company, and also
there's a network company called Safaricom. He's also mentioned that entity.
And right now, I can tell you for sure that Kenyans are cancelling these brands out. They've started with Coca-Cola. Just the other day when the demonstration started to kick IMF out and to kick the financial bill out, Kenyans were coming out in huge numbers to try and boycott Safaricom. We even saw a lot of influencers and celebrities who were paid to endorse Safaricom, and they were working in partnership with Safaricom. They were coming out to denounce Safaricom because it is allegedly said that it is alleged that Safaricom was the company that was giving out private information, data to the police, and they were using this to abduct people.
Protesters. Yeah, to abduct protesters. And now Kenyans were feeling that if this network company was so willing to give their private information like that, and they could not protect them as the citizens or even their clients, it was not worth it to go on enriching them. And some Kenyans even called to Elon Musk because of his internet plan, the Starlink is called, I think. Yeah, so some Kenyans even were calling on to Elon Musk to bring Starlink to Kenya, and most of them were saying that they would be willing to endorse that business and let Safaricom fall down.
Although my personal opinion right now, it's a temporary solution, because personally I say I don't really trust anything. If you're a palm
palm-colored
person and you're bringing in something, it's going to reach a point. Let's just say Safaricom falls. It's a huge major network provider here in Kenya, and they fall, and you're only left with Starlink. Can you imagine what they can be able to do anything they want because they're the only network providers right now, right? But with that situation,
other people were calling for another network company that's here in Kenya, Airtel, to up its game and take over after Safaricom falls. But I don't know who will win between Starlinks and Airtel.
Right, and you guys, let me just say, I'm looking forward to the day that Africa will successfully kick corporations out of their countries, like IMF and WHO and all the ones they don't feel like are for them, right? But I feel like that is something that is yet to be seen. For as long as, provided we still have corrupt leaders, I don't feel like this is something that is going to happen anytime soon. But we are only hoping for change, and let's just say right now there's a revolution going on in Africa, and it has to count for something. You have to go one step at a time, right?
Right. So either ways, guys, please let us know what you think about this episode and what your opinion is on, do you think IMF are the ones to blame for what is currently happening in Kenya, or the president is the one to blame for getting in bed with IMF to begin with?
And then you guys, what got me is that this bill, obviously we all know who's behind it, and it wasn't even written by the Kenyan government. It was written by IMF because allegedly because they're trying to
raise money to be given back their loans.
So technically they're trying to control the Kenyan economy, and personally I feel like that is not a good thing, right?
But of course it's not a good thing, because as this man has said, when IMF gives loan, it's not because they want you to pay them back, it's because they're buying something in your country. And I think, my personal opinion, them raising these impossible taxes on Kenyans, it was a way of them trying to collapse the Kenyan economy so that you can be a poor country. And you know, when you're a poor country, they are able to control majority, if not most of everything that happens in Kenya, just like they're doing with Congo.
Anyway, guys, let us know what you think about this in the comment section. But the struggle continues. Kenyans are still out in the streets. It's one fight at a time, right?
Right, but they all know the Kenyans have a list of what they want fixed and what they want done away with completely, including organizations and corporations that have their hooks on Kenya. You know, Kenyans have their eyes on all of them.
And you guys, if you can remember, for those ones who've been keeping up with Kenya, and for those ones who've been keeping up with the economic situations of our country, you'll realize that Kenya still is thriving. It was thriving, and it was a very prosperous country. People were feeling safe when they came to East Africa. Kenya was the first choice. You know?
Especially under our third president's regime, President Mwai Kibaki. He died, but you know,
and then
Kenya was good.
President Uhuru took over, and then President Ruto after him.
And
but
it was there that things started falling apart.
Right.
And a lot of money got lost between these two regimes, President Ruto's and President Uhuru's regime. That is where a lot of money got lost. That is where they got themselves involved with IMF. Because when our third president was handing over the country to these two people, the economy was actually very stable.
It was very stable. Foreign investors were coming in. People in general just felt safe visiting Kenya.
Have a big debt to pay.
Right. But anyway, guys, we'll leave it there. Let us know what you think about this episode on the comment section. As always, we appreciate you for catching our episodes. Let's catch you on the next one. Consider subscribing if you have not.